It was the first time I'd been back to the county hearing room in years, and it was hard to ignore the silence that fell over the room when the projector froze. The image was clear. A map of my road, my culvert, my gate, and Celeste Harmon's contractor's note telling the crew to present the road as a pre-existing route during the county walk. That was the moment Celeste realized her confidence had crumbled. She'd spent 3 weeks acting like she already owned that mountain, but one simple slip-up, the kind of metadata trail that others overlook, ripped the ground out from under her. I built that road. Myself. That mattered more than the cabin, more than the trees, more than the acreage on the deed. Because without that road, none of it was accessible without chewing through timber and rock. I remember buying my parcel above Aspen Vale years ago. The county made it clear from the start that I wasn't going to get any access. The HOA below me certainly wasn't about to help. So I hired an excavator to do the parts I couldn't handle, ran grade lines by hand, ordered culverts, and paid for base rock by the truckload. I kept every receipt because when something matters, I don't leave it to chance. I didn't just build a driveway, I built proof. The first warning came in an envelope that looked harmless. HOA, letterhead, neutral font, a courtesy notice. Inside it was a tidy little statement about how my road had been identified as a possible secondary emergency route during wildfire season and storm events. It all sounded pretty soft, but the attached map, that wasn't soft. Whoever drafted it had shaded my private road in the same color as their common area lanes, making it seem like if they printed it clean enough, reality would just follow. I scanned everything, the letter, the envelope, the map, and saved it all along with the original file properties. That same night, I pulled my deed binder, parcel survey, and construction log off the shelf. You know, if someone wants your land, the first thing they do is mess with the language. They stop calling your property yours. They relabel it into something negotiable, shared, historic, community-facing, safety-related. That's how theft dresses when it wants to be invited in. A week later, I showed up at an Aspen Vale board meeting, even though I wasn't a member and had never pretended to be. Celeste Harmon was sitting in the center, as polished as ever in a cream blazer, hands folded, voice calm. She was the type of woman who weaponized order and called it stewardship. She talked about wildfire readiness, neighborhood resilience, shared responsibility. Then 10 minutes later, she warned one resident about his trash bins being visible from the street. Immediate enforcement, she said. Standards protect value, she added. I almost laughed, but the absurdity made it more painful. My road, which I paid to build, was suddenly a public safety asset, but a trash bin behind a hedge was a threat to order. I recorded the meeting where aloud, took notes where I couldn't. But one particular sentence stuck with me. No single owner should obstruct a route that materially benefits the greater mountain community. That line told me her goal. The mechanism came next. 3 days later, I got a letter from an HOA lawyer. It was labeled a temporary cooperation proposal. I read through every page, but buried deep inside was the real play. Keep pad, sharing inspection rights, maintenance authority, temporary hazard controls, and limited operational discretion. In plain English, they wanted me to sign away control first and argue about ownership later. They didn't want to win the road in court. They wanted to occupy it administratively until the facts got tired. I declined by certified mail. I kept the receipt, the tracking log, and a marked-up copy with every poison clause highlighted in red. That should have slowed them down. Instead, it told them I was awake. 2 mornings after my refusal, I drove up to the lower gate and found 2 contract guards standing beside a laminated closure notice zip-tied to my fence. The sign claimed the road was temporarily restricted under interim safety authority pending boundary clarification. No county seal, no court order, no sheriff's signature, just HOA branding, and 2 men standing there looking like the world's most official bluff. I parked, stepped out, held up my phone and asked, "Who issued the closure?" The older guard shifted, glanced at the paper and said, "Board instructions, sir. We're here until the route gets finalized." By who, I asked. He hesitated. "Ms. Harmon." That was the moment the line was drawn. Time-stamped clear audio. Goal and mechanism in one sentence. Stop me from accessing my land by making private theater look like public authority. I called the sheriff's non-emergency line and got an incident number before I even turned my truck around. The next morning, I didn't go back to the gate. Instead, I hiked my east line, launched my drone, and let the camera do what ego always fails to do, tell the truth without performance. About 400 yards upslope from the control point, I spotted a contractor crew trenching into my turnout. One worker had a saw, another was resetting stakes, and Celeste, exactly where she belonged in a story like this, wasn't touching a tool. She was standing off to the side in clean boots, clipboard in hand, pointing, authorizing, supervising. Karen moved the workers. I flew lower, capturing the trench line, the new post placement, and the exact spot where they'd crossed onto my parcel to relocate the practical choke point deeper inside my property. I recorded the foreman when I approached from my side of the line. "Who's the client on this?" I asked. He wiped his brow. "Aspen Vale Road Committee. Got a county permit." He looked at Celeste first. That was answer enough. Back home, I pulled up the county portal. No excavation permit, no utility permit, no grading permit. I saved the screenshots with timestamps and called my attorney. That was when the conversation ended and the file began. We filed for a temporary restraining order, sent preservation notices to the HOA, Celeste, the contractor, and the guard company, ordering them not to destroy texts, emails, work orders, routing logs, invoices, or internal committee communications. I requested a civil standby from the sheriff and documented every visible change to the road alignment before those forms cured into existing conditions. Anger was there, sure, but anger is heat. Process is pressure. Pressure cracks better things than shouting ever will. Then I opened the cabinet in my cabin and pulled out the old road build archive I hadn't touched in years. There was the quarry receipt for the first base layer, the diesel logs from my skid steer, the culvert delivery slips, the inspection notes, progress photos with dates burned into the files. And best of all, there were the GPS machine exports from the original grading work with coordinates matching the switchbacks and turnout exactly as they existed long before Aspen Vale started talking about historic reliance. I sent the full package to a licensed surveyor and an old county roads inspector. Both came back fast. Both were direct. The surveyor said the alignment and improvements were consistent with private owner-built access entirely within my parcel. The inspector wrote that the drainage logic, shoulder, and culvert placement reflected a single original construction sequence, not some shared route later adopted by a neighborhood. Then Celeste hit back with fraud. She filed a county petition to recognize the road as a historically relied upon access corridor. The exhibit attached to it was polished enough to impress someone who didn't zoom in. My attorney zoomed in. Then he overlaid her exhibit against the GIS base layer and laughed once very quietly. "They moved your lines," he said. "Not much, just enough. Enough to tuck your gate turnout and one retaining cut into a strip they could describe as functionally shared. Enough to cloud the picture before a site walk. Enough to create leverage if nobody checked the source file." We checked the source file. The export metadata tied the exhibit to a consultant account linked to Celeste's brother-in-law's land use firm. Now, the story had shape, not confusion, not safety, just a paper weapon built to justify a physical move already underway. Celeste started performing victory. After that, she held a roadside safety briefing with 2 board members, the contractor foreman and the same guard company. I stood 20 feet away on the public shoulder and recorded while she gestured toward my road like it had already converted itself once the county reviews wrote history. She said, smiling at the foreman, "This private access fiction is over." The contractor broke before the county did. When the sheriff paused on site work pending review, the foreman decided he didn't want his company buried under somebody else's arrogance. He forwarded my attorney the revised scope sheet he'd been given. I still remember reading it the first time: move existing owner gate uphill, reclaim private turnout into neighborhood pull-off, mask prior drainage cuts for continuity, present as pre-existing route during county walk. That last line was the one. Not sloppy, not emotional, just professional, cold, instructional. It connected the trench, the false map, the guard post, and the petition into one clean mechanism. Alter the site, alter the paper, alter the story.